Hello, this is John D. Callahan. Over 30 years ago, in my early 30s, I had high triglycerides of over 300, and I took fish oil, which lowered them. And fish oil is primarily omega-3 fatty acids and polyunsaturated fat. It's fat. I had low, at the same time approximately, within a few years, I had low HDL in the low 30s. And I took canola oil and a blend of canola oil with of all things soybean oil. And I took this much, that's 4 tablespoons or about 2 ounces. And this is all fat, primarily monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, and this is all fat again. The fish oil. So 4 fish oil capsules, I think you can imagine that. A capsule's about the size of the tip of my finger. 4 of those and 4 tablespoons of canola and soybean oil mix, which is all fat. Now I would have taken olive oil, but I couldn't eat it. So this gave me the monounsaturated fat that I wanted. Plus, it turned out it was a third to a fourth as expensive as olive oil. Now, I was eating the standard American diet, but I was watching my weight. I was exercising some, and I had enough sense not to eat sugar all day. Although I did eat donuts and pizza. It's pretty much a standard diet, American diet, and pasta, maybe, and ice cream, and maybe leaning a little towards the Mediterranean diet. But I didn't change my diet, and it was closest to a standard American diet without excess. And again, I watched my weight and did some exercise and was health conscious, but it wasn't anything extraordinary in my diet, except I had high triglycerides, and I lowered them with this. And I had low HDL, and I raised it with this. Just 4 capsules of fish oil and 4 tablespoons, about 2 ounces of canola vegetable oil mix. Okay, that was over 30 years ago. I did that every single day because it did correct the problems with my lipids. My triglycerides came way down, and my HDL doubled. My triglycerides went into the 60s, and my HDL went into the 60s also. The low 60s for the triglycerides, high 60s for the HDL. And by the way, in a couple of my other videos, I actually do show you those medical records. So that was every single day for over 30 years. I'm 67 now. Look at me. I was carded earlier this year. I asked the gentleman, how old do you think I am? And he said, 40s. I think you're in your 40s. I had a coronary calcium score last year. And again, these medical records are in some of my other videos where I actually show them to you. My coronary calcium score, the plaque in my arteries, was 0. It was undetectable in all 4 arteries. Undetectable, 0 in all 4 coronary arteries. I had a stress test. I went over 14 minutes, and my heart rate went up to 160, and I had a few palpitations and no discomfort at all. I don't exercise every day at that intense level, but I was able to do that. It was a piece of cake. So, looking back, it was the good fat of the fish oil and the good fat of the canola oil, which did it, and it was only a little added to my diet. So looking back, now, I did that after researching the Mediterranean diet. Now, a cardiologist told me to take the fish oil, but it took a lot more research to come to the conclusion that it was the monounsaturated fat that was so important in the Mediterranean diet. So in retrospect, if you look around the world, it's not that the Okinawans were eating sweet potatoes. It was they were eating they were eating that much fish oil. And it's not that they're eating legumes or pasta or breads or salads on the Mediterranean diet. They're getting that much olive oil or more. That's what's so important. Now, it's not that other health factors aren't important, and I have a video on Listen to These Doctors where I mentioned the doctors I think you should listen to every day, and they have all kinds of videos. So there are other health issues. I'm not saying that. And I'll mention their names right now. Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Sten Ekberg, Dr. Eric Berg, and Dennis Pollock. He's not a doctor, but he has excellent ideas. So I have a video on watch them. So it's not that there aren't other health problems, but the most important thing is to get good fat in your diet. Get good fat. Just get good fat in your diet. That's what I did. Now, my standard American diet did finally catch up with me, and it dawned on me, hey, I got to check my A1C. Sure enough, it went to, even though all my other numbers were good, including my glucose, I said, hey, I got to check my A1C. So first time I checked, it was 5.6, but sure enough, the next time I checked it, it ticked up to 5.7. So I've been doing keto and low carb now, and it's gone down to 5.4, my A1C, and my testosterone has gone up, and I think it's generally healthier to do that. And saturated fat is good for you. And there are, of course, other dietary issues and health issues. I don't want to minimize it, but the single most important thing is to get good fat in your diet. And I'll do it. I'm going to end up doing this several times. Get good fat in your diet. That's all there is to it. These are miracle drugs. And I have a video on that. So, what did we do? What did we do in the late 20th century, mid to late 20th century? We attributed heart disease to saturated fat and cholesterol. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then, which was even worse, we attributed it to not only just saturated fat, but all fat. And the very best thing, the most important thing you can eat is fat, and particularly the two fats that I've been discussing. And I'll do it again. I'm going to do it all this whole video. This is fat, and it's the most important thing you can eat. We threw that out, and we replaced it with the very worst thing you could eat. Sugar, and what is nothing more than condensed sugar, breads, and pastas. It's just condensed sugar. It just breaks down into sugar. And lots of fruits. We replaced the most important thing with the worst thing. And it was an absolute health catastrophe. We've had great increases in diabetes, in obesity, and many other diseases. Absolute catastrophe. So we need obviously to reverse that, and the best thing is to get the good fats in your diet. I'll do it again. Do it every few seconds. Get good fat into this. Can be olive oil if you don't want to eat. I didn't know any better, because a lot of health experts will say this is highly processed and not good for you. So eat olive oil if you'd like. But I don't think that. I think they've mixed this in with the sugar problem. The problem is the sugar in the breads. It's not even the processed oils. So get these into your diet and get the breads and the pastas out. But even it doesn't even matter if you get those into your diet. Go ahead and eat a Mediterranean diet. Just don't go overboard with sugar and pastas. I would lean towards low carb and keto. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, my dad had triple bypass in his 50s. And I have other relatives of his generation that dropped over dead with heart attacks in their 40s and 50s. And I've had other friends and relatives that dropped over dead in their 40s and 50s from heart disease. My brother-in-law had many relatives with the same issue, and there was a great concern about his health. He took my advice about the same time over 30 years ago, started taking fish oil. He's 70, he's older than me, and he's out playing tennis, hasn't had any problems out playing tennis with my sister. So wanted to make sure I got that in. A few other quick addendums. I only went pre-diabetic with an A1C of 5.7 last year. It has since gone down to 5.4, and it will probably continue to go down. The last point is that of all things, I put my canola vegetable oil blend into a great big bowl of raisin bran and shredded wheat every morning. I did have cheese with it. I usually would have a few ounces of mozzarella cheese. But the oil went into a great big bowl of raisin bran. It was delicious, by the way, but I don't have one convert in all these years. No one believes me. By the way, again, there was nothing extraordinary about my diet. It was more of a standard American diet than anything else, or perhaps a cross between a standard American diet and a Mediterranean diet. I ate ice cream, pizza, hamburger, loved donuts. Now I did keep my weight down. I did eat cheese, but I ate a big bowl of raisin bran and shredded wheat every morning. And I had enough sense to keep my weight down again and not to drink soda all day. But other than that, there was nothing extraordinary about my diet. I simply had high triglycerides of over 300, and to fix that, I took fish oil. And I had low HDL, often low 30s, usually no higher than the mid 30s. And I took seed oil or vegetable oil in order to raise my HDL. And my HDL approximately doubled. That's all I did. I did not change my diet. Now let's look at this graph, which comes from Gluten Free Homestead. Now one notices olive oil here. What's the primary ingredient of olive oil? It's not so much that it's omega-6 or omega-3s that are so important. It's right here. Monounsaturated fat. There are 8 different types, and it's not essential your body can make it. But just because your body can make it and it's not essential doesn't mean that it might not be extremely valuable to eat it. And indeed, that is what I believe is so important. That's the miracle drug. Now, I couldn't eat olive oil because it put me into atrial fibrillation. So I said, well, what else can I eat? You might notice that safflower oil is very similar, but even better, because it's easier to get and it's much cheaper, canola oil. So I started eating canola oil. And not only that, I got even better result when I mixed it with soybean oil, of all things. So let's move on now. This is my coronary calcium score from last year. Notice my age here, 66. And if we go down here, what do you notice about this? Looks like a lot of zeros to me. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 on all 4 of my coronary arteries. This is my stress test now, moving on from again last year. You can see my age indirectly from this information up here at the top. See my date of birth and the date of the test. Now if we move down here, you see exercise time over 14 minutes, heart rate, 160. Now, moving down to the bottom, symptoms. Symptoms, palpitations. I stayed in normal sinus rhythm and had a few palpitations. This is my lipid panel, recent lipid panel from this year. And we notice here my triglycerides are low 60s, and my HDL is the high 60s. Now it is true that my HDL is a little high, but that seems actually to be beneficial, contrary to much of popular mainstream medicine. I believe it's beneficial, and you can look at some videos explaining that. I have another video, Listen to These Doctors. So, also, by the way, despite the miracle drugs, because my diet did eventually catch up with me, and I went to 5.7, which is the first tick of pre-diabetic. So I've been going low carb and keto. That's one reason my total and LDL were high. But again, that's beneficial actually. And another plus of the keto and the extra fat is I used to have a problem with testosterone. Now it's going up. But the main thing is the seed oil. The seed oil and the results in conjunction with the fish oil. Fabulous calcium, coronary calcium scoring, fabulous stress test, and fabulous of the important numbers lipid panel. So that's my story. That's what's happened when I took this much canola and vegetable oil. This is about 2 ounces or 4 tablespoons every day for over 30 years. That's what it did to my body.